Hello and welcome to Bags of Action. My name is Pete and this is a 5-minute Bags of Action review of The Next Karate Kid from 1994. So I've been rewatching all the Karate Kid movies, ready for when Cobra Kai drops on Netflix. It's 5 years on from the third movie. Mr. Miyagi is back, but Daniel San, the writer and the director of the 3 previous films are not. So Mr. Miyagi is back and he takes a new pupil under his wing, a troubled adolescent girl. It's directed by Christopher Kane, who's done lots of films I've never heard of, and one I had heard of, Young Guns. It's written by Mark Lee, who's written 2 movies I haven't heard of, and one I have, Young Guns. So obviously they've worked together before. The film stars Hilary Swank from Iron Mother, $1 Million Baby, probably most famous for, and The Core. Pat Morita, of course, is back as Mr. Miyagi. One of my favourite villains of all time, Michael Ironside from Starship Troopers, Total Recall, Top Gun, V, Highlander 2 is in this one. Chris Conrad from Clear and Present Danger and The Specialist. Michael Cavalieri from Last Man Standing, and a martial arts movie I remember called Showdown. Walton Goggins, who's gone on to be one of the more recognisable faces from this film. He was in Ant-Man and the Wasp, the recent Tomb Raider, and also Cowboys and Aliens. And Arsenio Trinidad, he's of note because he played a completely different part in The Karate Kid Part 2 and is back here playing a different one. So, we don't start with a flashback to a previous movie, and we don't start picking up on the last, continuous action from the last film. So you instantly know you're in for something different. Mr. Miyagi is in Boston this time, and he starts to look after a friend's granddaughter while he lends the friend his own place in California. So, not even the setting is consistent. The only thing that remains from the other films is literally Mr. Miyagi. At the start of this film contains one of the worst examples of expositional dialogue I've ever heard, when Hilary Swank's character Julie tells her grandmother that her parents are dead and how they died. Pretty sure she knows. And where the original movie was very, very 80s, this is extraordinarily 90s indeed, with the fashion, the hair, the way it's made, and also you've got things like M People and the Cranberries on the soundtrack for good measure. Now, it's the second film in a row in this series where rape threats are involved. And in fact, I think apart from Mr. Miyagi and the monks, which I'll come on to later, every male character pretty much in this movie at some point, more or less, threatens someone with sexual assault, which is not a good look. So Julie makes a friend. It's very reminiscent of the Daniel-Ali relationship in the first movie. They kind of replay that a little bit. But it's weird because she's already looking after this hawk, and she's already made this friend. So she's supposed to be this tough girl, but it doesn't really ring true, and she's already starting to change a bit before Miyagi has an impact. They do make the fact she's a girl really prominent, to the point with modern eyes it's a bit cloying. Mr. Miyagi walks in on her when she's changing, which is bizarre. She goes on about how she must have makeup and likes to go to the mall, and he gets her some babysitting work. Again, it's stereotype city, really. They couldn't quite give her the same training as Daniel, and they do allude to that. It's quite clever, actually, how they do that, but I don't know, but how they do train her in this is pretty ludicrous and nonsensical. I just don't buy that Miyagi would take her off to this temple with these monks. It feels very left field compared to the previous films. Now, the previous films I think have got worse of each outing. I think the first movie is pretty perfect for what it is. Second film, not as good. The third, worse again. But they had one major benefit to keep them interesting, even at their lowest points: the established relationship between Mr. Miyagi and Daniel. Trying to recreate that with a new lead here is a tall order, and it makes the cheesiest elements of this film much harder to ignore. The deft touch of the previous writer and director are lost too. For a supposed bad girl, she's pretty corny, but that kind of fits in with how these films are, I guess. I didn't really grow to like the Julie character that much, and Mr. Miyagi felt slightly out of character. The training methods were more traditional than we expect in these films. There wasn't enough waxing or painting for my liking. They tried to do something different, but I think they lost the magic in the process. Michael Ironside's character is extremely over the top, and the film on the whole has lots of disjointed elements all pushed together, and it doesn't quite work. Now, if you plan to watch Cobra Kai and you haven't yet, you don't need to see this one, really. There's no connective tissue unless they decide to bring Julie back in later, but I very much doubt it. To be honest, you could probably watch the first Karate Kid, go straight to Cobra Kai, and be just as well informed. There's little bits in here I liked, like the odd moment, the odd scene, but all in all, it's each of these films have got worse, and this is by far the low point of the franchise. It pains me to do it. I'm sorry to the memory of Pat Morita, but I am going to have to give the next Karate Kid 1 bag of action out of 5. This is the second time I've seen it. I don't plan there to be a third. Have you seen the next Karate Kid? Have I got it completely wrong? Feel free to comment below or get in touch with us on email, Facebook, or on Twitter. We've got new episodes coming out each week alongside our full-length podcast with my co-hosts. Don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell so you get notifications so you never miss an episode. Bags of Action will always be free, but if you want to show your support, do feel free to buy us a coffee, and you can do that at our Ko-Fi Ko-Fi page.